Hello and welcome again, friends. Today is the Odin Project vlog day 14. It's 12/11/2021, and tonight's going probably to be a little bit of a longer video recording because I went ahead and finished up the rest of the exercises. We left off at 04 chaining solutions, so I went through that one, and 05 Descendant combinators, and 06 cascading fix. These solutions don't take that long to describe, but in order to have the video flow well, giving you the context of the README file is important that we go through. So tonight might be a little longer just because we have a bit of explanation to do. But with that said, let's just get started. So we started off with chaining selectors. This is where we left off from the last video. It says in this exercise, we'll provide you with a completed HTML file, so you'll only have to edit the CSS file. For this exercise, it's more important to understand how chaining different selectors works and how to actually add the attributes. We have two images for you to style, each with two class names where one of those class names is shared. The goal here is to chain the selectors for both elements so that each has a unique style applied despite using a shared class selector. For example, you want an element that has both X and Y to have a set of styles, while an element with X and Z has a completely different set of styles. We included the original file images as well, so that you can see how the styles you will be adding look in comparison, so do not add any styles to them. The properties you need to add to each element are: make the element with both the avatar and proportion classes 300 pixels wide, then give it a height so that it retains its original squared proportion. Don't hard code in a pixel value for the height. That's a good key there. So with that, we'll use auto. Make the element with both the avatar and distorted classes 200 pixels wide, then make its height twice as big as its width. Here you should hard code in a pixel value. So desired outcome, picture there. Self-check. Did you properly chain class selectors for each rule? Does the proportion image retain its original square proportions? And does the distorted image end up looking squished and well distorted? So if I can scroll over a little bit here. Here's what the desired look's going to look like when it's done. So we're going to have undistorted, distorted, and then proportioned. So this is what it's going to look like when we're done. Hopefully. That's the idea. So let's go back to over here. Okay, so here's our HTML file. We will not be making any changes to this. This is just to get a view. So here's your chaining selectors title. And here's your class attribute, avatar proportion, avatar distorted. And it actually gives you a hint here: use the classes below this line and use the classes above. So basically they're saying ignore this part. Honestly, I'm not even sure why that's even in there at this point. I guess they're just in the README file they cite the person providing these JPEGs, so I guess that's why it's in there. I don't exactly know, because we're only working with these two. So anyway, enough on that. So we're going to spend the whole time on the CSS. So if you remember, if this doggone thing will let me scroll. Okay. It's sorry, when it's all blown up like this, it's hard for me to navigate this sucker, but we'll do our best. All right. So we need to work with avatar and proportion first and apply some declarations. So we need to do chaining. And if you guys remember chaining was doing your class dot another class with no spaces. And make sure that you check your typos. And just for sake of time, we already went over this in the README file, so I'm just going to plop these in here. So we're going to do a width of 300 pixels. And we're going to do height of auto. That's so that this proportioned file remains aligned or ratioed correctly. Remember from previous videos we talked about, if you don't use auto and you put a value in there when the screen changes, or you have you're doing it on a looking at it on a tablet or a phone, it's going to get all jacked up because the ratios are not equal within the container that it's sitting in. So this keeps that issue from occurring. And then we're going to create another selector called avatar.distorted, so we can chain together the distorted image. And here we're going to give it the height of 400 pixels because it said to do double the width for the height, and so then our width will be 200 pixels. And that's that. So you want to Control S to save, and refresh. And that looks pretty doggone close to what we already had. So I say that's a success there. So that's it. So what we did here is we called those in, and those go into the HTML. Here's your avatar proportion, and here's your avatar distorted classes, and that's it. So that's pretty simple on that one. Go ahead and close that to clear up some of this. Alright, here now we're going on to 5. Number 5 is Descendant combinator. Understanding how combinators work can become a lot easier when you start playing around with them and see what exactly is affected by them versus what isn't. The goal of this exercise is to apply styles to elements that are descendant of another element, while leaving elements that aren't descendants of that element unstyled. You can use either type or class selectors for this exercise, whichever you may feel you want to practice with more. The HTML file is set up, so no need to edit anything in it, so that any combination of selectors will work. So if you're feeling adventurous, you can try combining a type and a class selector for the Descendant combinator. Spoiler alert, I did not do that. I did not feel adventurous today. The properties you need to add are only the P elements are the descendants of the div element, should have a yellow background, red text, font size of 20 pixels, and center aligned. And then your self-checks, do the elements that contain the text, this should be styled, have the correct styles applied. Do the elements that contain the text, this should be unstyled, have no styles applied. So, again, we'll look at our index file, an HTML file, and here's our container, our div container called container, and here's our paragraph called text. This should be styled. Here's 2 more paragraph P text that say this should be unstyled, so we're going to leave these alone, and we're going to use our Descendant combinator to make that happen. And here's another div container that contains 2 p tags, and it says this should be styled. So basically we're going to be styling these 2, and we're going to be styling this one, and we are going to have CSS tell HTML to ignore these. And I will show you how to do that. So first off, that's that's it. So I told you you don't have to get crazy with this stuff. Sometimes I overthink it too. It took me, these didn't take long. We'll say the last one, the Cascade fix, was a little bender when we get to that one. But anyway, this one is, we're creating a selector called container, because here's your div, because your class is container under the div, so we want to call that. And then the space, if you remember from selectors, from Descendant combinators anyway, the space in here means we're going to target the child relationship of container. So we're going to target the child relationship class called text, which is this right here. So we're targeting that, and we set, therefore we won't target these 2, because as you can see, these p tags are not in class attribute class text, are not a child of class of div. See, and these are. See, here's another div, there's child. So remember that parent-child relationship. So that's what we're targeting. With that space, that's what we're targeting. I had to go back in text and read that because I couldn't remember what that space meant, and that's exactly what it means. So we're doing our background color yellow, font color red, font size 20 pixels, and text align center. So Control S to save. And what we'll do is we will drag our index file into here. Maybe. Come on, baby. Sometimes this doesn't want to go for some reason. There we go. So if you see that, that's what we have. Let's check it against the file that they provide to see if it matches the desired outcome file. Yep, there it is. Looks good to me. What do you guys think? Looks good to me. So that was that one. We'll close that out. And on to the last one. So this one's a little more of a mind bender. This is this cascading. Unlike all the other 5 exercises, this last one's kind of a doozy because instead of creating, it's to me the way I think about things. It's easier for me to create something from nothing, as weird as that sounds. But this, and it'll go over this in the text, but this is actually fixing what's already there. So they purposefully wrote code that's broke, and you have to fix it. And so that was a first time for me, and I had to spend a little bit of time on it. Not a ton, but I had to put quite a bit more effort into this one because it's a different type of thinking. You have to troubleshoot more. I feel like especially when it's not code that you wrote and you're not familiar with it. So here we go. But nevertheless, this will happen in a day in the life of a developer. So you have to get used to. It's a good exercise to get used to editing other people's code or something that you are not familiar with. So this final exercise in CSS Foundations is going to give you a closer look at the cascade, and particularly specificity and rule order. Both the HTML and CSS files are filled out for you. So instead of adding rules yourself, you will simply be editing what is provided, like I just talked about. There are a few elements that you will have to there are a few elements that have some sort of specificity or rule order issue in the provided CSS file. It's up to you to figure out what the issue is affecting that element and how to fix it. You can edit the CSS file by adding or removing selectors or moving stuff around, but you should not edit the HTML file or any of the actual styling declarations in the CSS. There are multiple ways to solve this exercise, and we did our best to include all the possible solutions for each element. Issues with the cascade can be a bane of the existence for many when it comes to CSS. While you won't become a cascade expert from this exercise alone, and there are other ways to deal with these issues, it is still super helpful to see how these issues affect our final styles and why it's important to order rules carefully. Self-check. Did you make sure to not edit the HTML file? If you added selectors to the CSS, do they target a valid HTML element? So that's a lot there. So basically we're going to just jump right in. So we look here, we got our standard boilerplate file, and then we look here, we have a p tag with a class para. I'm just a simple paragraph. Here's a p tag class para small para. I'm a smaller paragraph, so you see they've got some multiple classes here. Button ID, confirm, cancel, and a class attribute of button confirm. They're doing this to give you flexibility. You don't have to target both, and you can if you want, and I did not. I chose to not. And there's a confirm, and there's a button for cancel and button cancel. There's a div class called text. I'm not related to these divs down there. And there's another div class text. I have a child. And there's the child class called text child. My ancestor is so embarrassing. So now you've kind of seen that. This is the desired outcome. So we want a bigger bold red. We want a smaller red. Doesn't look like that's bold. We want to confirm green and a salmon, if you will, cancel. Big green. I'm not related to those divs down there. I have a child and my ancestor is so embarrassing. That's what we're looking at. So when you throw this in there, So the index file, let's just throw this in there. I don't know if this is going to give us, sorry. Okay. Oh well. Okay. This can be hard to explain because for one, there's multiple solutions and there's not one right way to do it. And I won't show you the solution file because it's kind of confusing. But basically, we have to go in and edit this. So this is currently wrong, but we want it to look like this. It currently does not, and so we need to edit the style. So first thing is I start at the top, move my way down, and so I'm just a simple paragraph. So what we want to do is think of cascading. This is all about cascading. So we're going to move things around basically, and we're going to do some renaming. So the first thing I want to do is I want to move that para class to the top. And why I want to do that is because of order operation. I want the paragraph with that top font size 22 to be at the top, so it's processed first. And then what I want to do here is, this wasn't here before, sorry, it's kind of confusing. So it just said .confirm. So I added button.confirm because I need the button to be green. So it's kind of confusing because I wasn't able to show you the file before it was edited. The original file showed the background color was not or was it green? I'm sorry guys, I'm confusing you. They want it to be green and it comes up not green. I think it was like black, if I remember right, or white. Anyway, so I named that, and then I named this one button got cancel. So basically to give it more specificity, because when you do that, as you know, it moves it up the cascading chain. So we need to be more specific. So basically, I'm doing the same with text.child. I'm just adding in, and I'm doing this because button.confirm is button.confirm, button.cancel, because these just said confirm and cancel before, and they weren't specific enough, so they weren't being applied at the top at a higher level, and so they were getting all messed up. Same with text. I added text.child to be more specific, so that it would not only target this, but target it at a higher level on the CSS, since it's combining two classes. So there's that. And then I also moved the div text, and I moved div text up, moved text.child down, because the reason for that is I wanted the green font size 20 on div.text, which is this right here, div.text. I needed it to have a higher relationship. I needed to be processed first because this is an ancestor, so I needed it to be processed last, and so that's the reason for me flipping them. And as you can tell, because this is a parent ancestor relationship, I had to put the space in there. So I didn't do text.child, I did .text space .child, so that I told CSS that I want this to be processed after this, and that this is a child-parent relationship, because it wasn't like that before. And that's it. I went through that really fast. I'm sorry. I just didn't want this video to be, this is probably going to be so far my longest video. I just didn't want to belabor it. So now, if I refresh, like I said, I've already done it, so it didn't change, but that desired outcome will be the same. See? Desired outcome is the same. Again, I don't have the way to other than to recreate, delete everything I did and save it out just to show you what it was before. I don't have a way to. I didn't think that through, I guess. Sorry, guys. So hopefully this still makes sense. So that's it for this. So that's all that there is to that. The next video, or tomorrow, I will be going back into the project recipes that we built 3 or 4 videos ago, where we did the allrecipes.com build out, and I'm going to add CSS to that and make it pretty. That actually is in the Foundations class down here. And it's right here. Remember the recipes page you created as practice from the previous lesson? Well, it's rather plain looking, isn't it? Let's fix it by adding some more CSS. So, and it goes in, and I'll start this video out next time. We'll start out here describing what we're going to do and all that. So that's where we'll stop for now. Thank you for coming along the journey today, and I hope I didn't lose you and that you learned a lot today through these 3 lessons of CSS, completing and rounding that out. And we'll finish up, I believe, tomorrow with this, and that'll end this CSS Foundations module here. Until next time, see ya.